record this session. Welcome everyone. I'm Madhumita. I'm a product lead at Startree. Startree is an early stage startup growing in Bay Area and very exciting to be part of this company. Today I have Kajal, who is one of my favorite person and ex-manager who have worked with me, and I'm super excited to discuss this topic, how product plus program can be powerful package. Great part of LinkedIn audio event is I really want this to be interactive. So you can raise your hand, and if you have a question or a perspective to share, you can do so, and then I will invite you to the stage and you can unmute yourself and share your thoughts. This is 30 minutes, so we are a little under a time crunch. So the format is going to be I have set of questions. I'll start with opening up for Kajal to introduce herself, and then I'll go through my questions, and then in between I'll pause and see if there are questions. If it's quick one, we can take. If there are long ones, we can wait till then. Okay, cool. With that, Kajal, why don't you introduce yourself, your career journey, and some tips that help with your career success? And what do you do when you are not working?
All right. Hey, thanks, Madhu. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Madhu. So, yeah, it's great to be here. Hey, folks, my name is Kajal Kamdar. I run the TPM and Operations for Engine product at Confluent. So, talking about my career journey, right? Like I did my undergrad and master's in computer science from Virginia Tech and Johns Hopkins, respectively. And then I was an engineer for about the first 5 years, initially at DirecTV, and then later at Microsoft in the real-time communications org, which over time has evolved into the Skype or the Teams product. I've actually had a couple of career transformations as well early on in my career. So I switched from writing code, from being an engineer to being a program manager when I was at Microsoft. And then later we moved to the Bay Area in 2008. And that's when I realized like there is a very distinct product manager role, which is different from a TPM role. And given my strengths align very well with the TPM role, I took on to be a TPM at Zynga in 2010. And then since then, I've been at Twitter, then LinkedIn, and now I'm here at Confluent doing program management. A couple of big call outs, I guess, from my career as a TPM. So at LinkedIn, the TPM role, has shaped me for who I am today. So I took on a leadership role, managed a team of about 6 to 8 people, worked on one of the most fulfilling programs to make LinkedIn Hadoop data GDPR compliant. And then Confluent is where I went back to actually becoming an IC when I joined. So I switched back from management to IC, drove a bunch of programs back in the day in the networking security space. And then, we've come a long way since the Engine product TPM team has grown significantly. And in fact, we are still looking to hire more people. So it's been a great journey here. I guess one key takeaway for success, I think you asked. For me, I think it's pretty it's easy to say, but difficult to kind of implement. But it's don't have any notions of what you will be doing when, especially more importantly, what you will not be doing when you take on a new opportunity, because it's every company functions very differently, and every role in every company also functions very differently. So interestingly, one of the things that has stuck with me from my Zynga days is they had this core value of be your own CEO, and that's really stuck with me for life, for whether it's at home or at work. And essentially, it's whatever you take on, you own it, right? So do what it takes to get it done in a decent timeline with quality results. That's the motto. And depending on the job or the role, you might have the TPM title, but you might be writing specs, or you might be writing code, or you might be a product manager and you are driving execution. So I think it's important to be to have that flexibility, muscle when you take up a job, and morph into what is needed of the role. And of course, your strengths play a big role here, but ultimately, it's not a very clear okay, if I am a TPM, I will only drive execution. No, that's not how usually companies work. Especially, it doesn't work as you grow in your career, right? I guess your last question, what do I do when I'm not working? Well, I'm usually being the CEO of something at home. So spending time with my kids or hanging out with my friends. I love hiking, listening to music to unwind. That's usually what I've been up to.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your career journey and what do you not do, uh, like when you're not working, or what do you do when you're not working? I think you said a very interesting point about be your own CEO. Wow, that's the tagline for today. Um, with that, I think some of us who have also dialed in have worked with you, and I just wanted to say it again how amazing person you are to work with, and really inspiring story from your career. So my next question to you is, what are some of the core competencies that every program manager and product managers should have, given you were a little bit talking about what it means for your career success?
Right. Yeah, I think there's a few things that come to mind, honestly. I think this applies to, like I said, program management and product management. The ability to influence without authority. We were just having this discussion last week on one of the talks I was in. And whether it's a program manager or a product manager, like the set of engineers you're working with, you're not managing them. So without essentially, how do you get stuff done effectively without like having folks reporting into you? It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting skill set to have, and I think I called this out in more detail last time. But like earning the respect of the individuals you work with is super important, in my opinion, to be able to do that effectively. I think another one is getting, in general, I think this is extremely true for program managers, but like just, I think we use this term here and we've used it at LinkedIn as well, like getting shit done, right? Or like you're cat herding. If there's only, I guess that's like the core necessary condition I think that is needed for these roles. Like you can't wait for others to tell you what to do. You need to essentially take ownership and like just get stuff done, right? There's often a bunch of different teams, for example, like doing little things in their own areas, but someone needs to like bring it together and keep the final destination in mind and like get steer the ship in the right direction. Another one I would say is you need to be a people person. I'm not saying you need to be an extrovert by nature, but there is like both these roles I feel are very, very people oriented jobs. So you need to know how to get essentially into people's heads and think like two steps ahead of them to succeed in this role, right? So one thing I highly recommend, for example, is take the Briggs Myers test, and identify your personality if you haven't done it. Because see, like I think it helps you learn. Like when I took it, it's like I'm an ESTJ, so it helps me understand like okay, what are my core strengths and what are the things, and a lot of things suddenly make sense. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing this in this way because I'm a pronounced extrovert, right? So I think it helps you also, and sharing that with others also helps them interact better with you, in my opinion. So yeah, that's another one. This is super key, I think, for all jobs, in my opinion. But like, you need to be organized. Like, you are, like I said, you have to get work done from others, and honestly, you can't expect getting that done unless you are like organized yourself. I touched upon trustworthiness a little, like earning the trust. But in order to, again, like people uh, need to be able to trust you with problems. So if they like, essentially, how do people come to you, or how do people think of, oh, okay, I need to go to Kajal if I get blocked on this? And the the fact that they know that okay, if they come to you, it will get done, whether you get it done or you get someone else to get it done. The problem will get tackled, right? Um, I think if something is off, the PM or the TPM are the first ones. I would say like when they are the first ones that come to mind, I think that is a sign of like, yeah, you've earned the trust of the folks you're working with, right? Another one would be like eat your own frog, right? Like eat that frog. So like for example, like you cannot, in these roles it's very difficult, like you have to be ahead of everyone else, so you cannot procrastinate in these roles, right? And all of us have things we don't enjoy doing necessarily, right? But at the end of the day, if you keep pushing those things out all the time, it is eventually going to catch up with you. So sometimes it's like I keep telling my son this, like sometimes just I have a little frog at my desk also at home. Like I literally just, I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to do this, but guess what? Unless I do this, I'm going to stay blocked on the other stuff that I enjoy doing. So I might as well just get this done now. And the last one that comes to mind, I would say, is like you need to keep a tab on like the area you're working on, like the domain you are in. So whether you're a program manager or a product manager, right? You'll be managing, essentially you could be managing stuff for in the sales area, you could be in engineering, you could be in finance, marketing. I keep saying this, but like for a TPM, the T is extremely important, right? Being technical, but that is like our domain area expertise. But like for sales and for marketing, program managers, product managers, it's a different thing. Whatever is your domain area that you are working on, it's important to have an in-depth knowledge of that, because at the end of the day, unless you have that, again, it goes back to ties back to the respect piece. Like it's very difficult to earn the respect of the folks you work with, and I also feel it's very difficult to add real value unless you are actually you understand the work that you are doing, right? So yeah, I would say those are some of the things that come to mind in terms of core competencies.
Great insights, Kajal. I mean, all of them are super, super important, and I have experienced myself playing both the roles, and I can totally see how this is extremely important uh, for somebody to sign on these roles. And I think what stood out is two things. Like if I had to key takeaways, of course, all the points are very important, but something that really stood out is the trustworthiness that you called out, like being valuable to your team, and then eat your own frog. So that was very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Since we are talking about product and program, what is the big difference you saw between these two roles?
So I would say, like, core competencies, I think I call it out, are similar in my opinion for both the roles. But few things I would say, especially like let's just pick the examples that or the areas I talked about, right? I would highlight here which are more important, for example, to be a good program manager, like cat herding, getting shit done, being execution focused, being super organized. I think these are like a must have for a program manager, right? Like you could potentially get away being an okay product manager, essentially, while like being mediocre on these core competencies. But like I think these are absolutely must have for a good program manager. Similarly, on the flip side, I would say the domain area expertise is one that stands out for me. Like for a product manager, like that person is the owner of the product, so ultimately he or she is responsible for taking accountability of that area. So again, like as a program manager, I've often worked with program managers as well who are not necessarily domain experts, but they are decent at what they do. I think it helps them tremendously if they ended up getting more domain expertise. But like for a product manager, that's like a must-have in my opinion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't deny with that. And I think that's why when I transition in my career from an architect to TPM to now product manager, I was always passionate about data, but I didn't have prior data experience. So there's definitely no way I could have dreamt being a data product manager and right off the bat. And being a data TPM definitely helped me while I learned about strong execution and all the great things that program managers bring to the table. And that's also very valuable if I want to transfer myself to product. And then that experience helped me. And plus, at the same time, I started building the data domain expertise, and that helped me to land an PM job eventually. But I totally agree with what you said. So now, I mean, since we talked about difference, I want to bring up my favorite question of the day, which is if we combine the two, will it be going to be a powerful package?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's in my opinion, it's a rocking combination, right? Like I think you can get so much more done when there is both a product and a program manager in any area, right? So, uh, but there are a couple of things. Like I'm just going to openly say it. Like there are a couple of things to watch out for. It's important to essentially draw a line between the responsibilities wherever there is a program manager and a product manager on a specific area, because chances are, like you might end up stepping on each other's toes if you don't have an open conversation off the bat. So, for example, what I do is often if there is a product manager or on a program that I'm driving, I would actually have an open discussion at the get go around who will be handling what, right? Like there are things that could go either way. So, for example, working with customer, gathering customer requirements, dealing with customer escalations or feedback from customers, working with the sales org, like driving execution, backlog grooming for your, for the work that you guys are planning to work on, the sprint planning that you guys are planning to do, what goes in what sprints, prioritization, unblocking engineering, keeping key stakeholders in the loop, or providing visibility on progress, all of that, right? Like it could go either way. I've seen product managers do an excellent job at it. I've seen program managers also do a great job at it. So once you iron that out, it's a lot easier because you know what you own and you can focus and do a great job at that rather than honestly worry about like, is this person trying to take over my role, right? So I think it's important to have that open conversation off the bat. Often it by like in my opinion, it's like in my head, it's pretty straightforward, right? If there is a product manager and a program manager working on something together, a way the clear framework that I use is like, hey, the product managers usually define the what, like they work on like, hey, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to get to our customers? And program managers often work very closely with engineering and eng managers, tech leads to figure out the how piece, right? So, and their job, like they define like how to get it through all the way through to the finish line.
Great call out. Thanks for sharing this. I mean, the more I think about it, I think, I mean, well said, like defining the what and why something PM can own, and then how could be something uh, like program managers can own. And I guess between the two, I think both can be. It's not about competency. Sometimes people can be competent in both the areas. However, this was a common terminology, I guess, I heard a lot at LinkedIn in my career, which is fewer things done better. And as you said, like drawing the line totally makes sense. That will help us each of the individual like product and program to focus in their individual areas and being more productive and valuable to the company, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I could not agree more on that part. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, as you said, in startups and many other places, sometimes you can't say no to things and you have to wear multiple hats. And in that case, one person, maybe because there are no other person playing that role, you may be asked to do both the roles.
Yes, absolutely. And it's possible. Like I think that someone could take on responsibility either ways, right? Like depending on the company, like I say.
Awesome. Since we are talking about this, I had a quick follow up question on that. Like, can someone
Mhm.
excel in both the roles if I have to play both the roles?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's possible. In fact, like if I had to say, like Madhu, I think you've done a great job at both the roles, in my opinion. Like when we work together at LinkedIn, right? Like I've seen you be a program manager, but you had taken on product management responsibility over time. You transitioned over to the product manager role as well. Although I would say it's not super common, right? So but having said that, I do think that regardless of your title or what you're doing, as you grow in a program manager role or a product manager role, you are going to have to think about everything, right? So you can't just say like, hey, my customer needs this now, so let's just get it out ASAP, right? Without keeping other things into consideration, or things like, yeah, I don't want to accumulate any tech debt, so let's build this ideal solution, which basically means like, yeah, I need to add a lot more time or more resources to it. I mean, when of course all those are considerations in like your decision making, but you need to strike a good balance across what the customer wants, understand the competitive landscape, the risk if you end up cutting corners to get something out sooner, or the risk of competition taking over if you don't get it out soon enough, or be able to like essentially be able to make the right call for the product at the end of the day, right? And in my opinion, both program managers and product managers, as they grow in their careers, need to develop this skill set as they, because otherwise, like you'll be put into a situation on any given day where like you might have to wear a different hat, and so just keeping your company's needs ahead of everything else, in my opinion, is like the way to, when in doubt, just do that and you'll know what the right answer is.
Yeah, great call out. I can totally I mean relate to it because early stage right? Before I could go deep. Even now, like at times, I don't get it. Like, why I have to do this? Like, why I have to do that? But I think all it comes, as you rightly said, is the accountability and ownership and getting stuff done. And it is important for any given role, right? To ultimately the outcome and success. And for that, whatever gaps are there to fill those gaps.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think
Um,
in a startup, it's even more like, I think not having a necessarily like a just a super well defined role. Like it's pretty ambiguous, right? Like you need to adapt on a day to day basis, in my opinion. Yeah.
I agree, and I have to fight my own self for that always. So I know I have asked a lot of questions. We have about 9 minutes. I'll open up for the floor. It just everyone. I mean, any of you interested to share your perspectives, raise your hand, or if you have question to ask, raise your hand, and I'll invite you to the stage, and you can unmute yourself and ask question. I'll give some time. Okay, I see Ed. Ed, I allowed you to speak. You can unmute and talk.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, good to hear from you.
I have a new microphone, so I need to test it. So thanks for sharing information. I'm grateful for you answering that last question about doing both program management and product management at the same time, specifically in the context of a startup, because I had a similar experience when I worked at a startup, and I was trying to do both. I personally naturally gravitated more towards like the program management side, just in my way of thinking, because it was hard for me to really focus on like what was coming next when I was seeing trouble getting things out the door. But what I would share is the big difference I saw was a big slowdown. Like it was hard for me to switch those contexts completely. And I think like the velocity of the team and the releases would have been a lot faster had we separated the roles quickly. So I agree with everything you said, and just wanted to echo my agreement on that startup world being tough. So it's great when a company can split the roles quickly.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think that would like if given if you have the bandwidth and the like the money to do it, like I highly recommend splitting it out. And I think like I said earlier, it's important to carve out the responsibilities because like a lot of us have worked in the dual role or in just one specific area, and everyone comes with a different notion of what it means, right? It's an open-ended role, so both of these are. So I think it's important to have an open, honest discussion, conversation about like, hey, where do we draw the line? Because ultimately, like, there's just so much work to be done, no matter where you are. Like, it makes sense to just carve it out and like, pick up the areas that align with your strengths and your interests. You'll do a much better job at it, honestly.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that, Ed.
Thanks, Kajal, for responding to it. And Ed, you brought up a very good point. I think this is very important because otherwise people may start getting burnt out, and which is definitely not good. Um, what I've been doing, obviously, I mean, I'm also working at a startup. In the beginning, I felt that, and I was super burnt out. Something that worked for me, I would like to share. We don't have the responsibility or sorry money or a team yet to do that like separate roles. So what I started doing is really focusing on what's important and what can wait, what doesn't wait, what cannot wait, and based on that, as Kajal said earlier, like what is the must have for this role versus the other role. I think keeping that in mind and what's expected out of you, focusing on that and asking for help, whichever way possible, or just setting the expectation that this is going to suffer. I think it is okay to do that because we are end of the day humans and not machines, and clearly calling that out helps. But of course, I can totally understand, it is not possible all the time, And usually I've seen when company probably either going through hyper growth phase or going through a tough phase where there are not enough people and they may be trying to hire or they don't have money to hire, you may run into this situation. So we all need to be watchful about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll wait and see if there are more questions. Okay, I see. Oh wow, so many people. Okay, I'll try to allow you one after other. Be patient. Priyanka, I invited you to the stage. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks Madhumita and hi Kajal. I hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Priyanka.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so maybe a quick question just to get more clarity on these roles. So based on your conversation and like when I talk to, because I'm in program management, and when I talk to my other colleagues or friends who are like core product managers or senior product lead actually, so I can see like these roles are interchangeable. But just one thing I'm curious to know. So for being like being in program management, and suppose you are posting a job on a product manager for some specific product, so do you think like nowadays like companies, do they consider program managers to lead any project like as a product manager or a senior product manager when it comes to like hiring for a product manager role? Do they consider program managers as well?
Sorry, Priyanka, I just want to make sure I understand your question. You're saying like, do companies consider hiring program managers for a lead role? Is that right?
For a product management role.
Oh, yes. So you're saying if you have only program management experience, would you consider? Yeah, I think it depends. Like honestly, like I'm not in recruiting, but like I do look at resumes as a when I am looking for program managers, I don't have the bar of like, okay, I only will talk to someone who has program management experience, and I think that's similar. That's vice versa is also true because, like I said, there's a decent amount of experience that someone could have as a doing like writing specs or depending on where you are from. For example, back in the day, Microsoft used to have a combined program. I think they might still do, but like a combined program / product manager role, and they used to call it a program manager. So I like they have done it all, right? Like they have done, they've written specs, they've driven execution. So I don't think it's fair to just say that, you shouldn't be eligible or like for like I think you're missing out on it if you're not like if you're just ignoring resumes without that title. I think the experience matters a lot more. So I do talk to folks all the time who have product management experience, and I recently just forwarded a resume, for example, to my product manager recruiter, who for someone who has a lot of program management background, but at the same time she's done, like in my opinion, when I read the resume, a lot of the work she had done was product management related. So I think she would be a great fit, for example. So I do think that folks should double click on it and not just look at the titles when they are exploring.
Hey Priyanka and Kajal, just a time check. I know Kajal has a hard stop. Thanks Priyanka for asking this question. If you have follow-up questions, you can all connect to Kajal on LinkedIn. And same thing about the other folks who have raised hands. Sorry about that. I'm not able to take your question. So, Kajal, any final thoughts before you drop off?
Yeah, I think, I mean, my only, I guess, I think Ed touched upon this, right? Like, my recommendation would be like if companies, like if I was running a company and if I had the option to have both roles, I would keep them separate. I do believe that most of us can do a decent job at either of them, if you took it on. But in order to do honestly a kick-ass job, like it's important to find your passion and double down on that. I'll just end with this quick example. Like my husband and I, both of us were at Microsoft, and like I said, back in the day, Microsoft's program manager role was a combined product and program manager role in the Valley. And when you do everything from gathering customer requirements, writing specs, driving execution, taking the feature all the way through the finish line. And when we moved to the Bay Area, that's when we realized like a TPM role is different from a product manager role. And just from a personality standpoint, like he derives energy from ideating and like his creative juices ooze out when he talks about a product. I, on the other hand, derive energy from getting shit done, working with people, right? And so automatically we gravitated towards, like he gravitated towards a product manager career path versus I gravitated towards a program manager career path, which is in retrospect was the ideal career choice for both of us, right? Because it aligned with our strengths. So, and it's important to pick the field or pick the opportunity based on your strengths, because like honestly, I strongly believe that doubling down on your strengths, like it'll, you once you know what your strengths are and you double down on them, you identify that, you can put like just go wild, right? Like you will see how you can bring your true, authentic, full self to work once you do that, and your job just stops feeling like work at that point, like because you are just being who you are every day. So that I think it's important to figure that out and then like double down on it. But yeah, I just wanted to end on that note.
Thank you, Kajal, and just be you, right? And thanks a lot, Ed,
Yes,
for
absolutely.
thanks a lot, Ed, for sharing your perspective, and Priyanka for great question, and audience for listening to us, and a special thanks again, Kajal, for spending time with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madhu, for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.